Join me in thanking our wonderful worship team and band. Thank you so much for leading us to the presence of our Lord. Good morning, Cornerstone University, faculty, staff, students, friends. It is my joy and privilege to be with you this morning. We've been praying for this day, praying that the Lord does a mighty work in all of our hearts and lives, and it's my joy and privilege to introduce our morning speaker to you. She is an innovator, a disruptor, a brilliant business leader, a fighter, a great leader. She is a national leading light in education reform, education choice, education freedom for all, a tremendously accomplished business leader, the 11th Secretary for the Department of Education. But more importantly for us and for me is that she is a devout follower of Jesus Christ. And she works hard and diligently to work that out in her own life. And she loves the Lord, loves her neighbor, and loves her community. Would you please join me in giving a warm Cornerstone welcome to the Honorable Secretary Betsy DeVos. Thanks again for being here. Please. Well, Betsy, thank you for joining us on this beautiful Michigan morning.
It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you.
I have to say, I was awakened by the Cornerstone University radio station this morning.
Oh, WCSG, great. The best radio station in Michigan, right? That's great, wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And as I shared with you in our little green room, one of the things that we work hard to do here at Cornerstone is to introduce our community, our students, faculty, and staff to Christian leaders, Christian influencers. Last year, we had a theme on campus called Christ, the Greatest Influencer. It's part of our mission, the centrality of Jesus. Share with us, through your incredible life journey and all that God has done in your life and through your life, the centrality of Christ and faith in Christ for every part of your life. How has that been worked out in your life that we can learn from?
Well, Gerson, I had the privilege of growing up in a home that had Christ at the center of it, and I believe my mom is here today. Yeah, I see her back there.
Great.
Thanks for being here, Mom. Always my best fan. And so I was exposed very early on to the centrality of Jesus. But I have to say, my faith did not really become my own until I was well into my 20s and a young mom myself, and realized the responsibility that I had to transmit those same beliefs and values to my children in an intentional way. So it's really been a lifelong journey, and I am constantly growing in my faith and constantly surprised by what God does. And it really is a journey. It was not an event for me, so to speak. But I'm just really blessed with the people that have come around me over the years and encouraged me at different times and in different ways. And I trust and hope that all of the students here with us today are looking for those same kinds of opportunities. And I think the thing that has become ever clearer to me as I've passed, every trip around the sun is the importance of noticing what God is doing, whether in your own life or in the lives of someone very close to you. And every time I notice something, I think that just ratchets up my faith a little bit more.
We shared, in the green room again, this little room off to the side. You just said something that reminded me of our conversation there. The important role that we have in sharing our faith. One of the leading causes, Cornerstone Community, for men and women who leave the faith is that oftentimes their own parents and families don't share their faith with their children. So the importance of transmitting our faith. So in your incredible journey, business, politics, leading, serving, philanthropy, share with us how you shared your faith with others. How have you done it? There's so many ways of doing it. There's not one set blueprint, but the importance is it was given to you by your mom who's here and others. How have you worked in your life to share with others as well? And what would you advise us in that regard to do?
Well, I think there are obviously a lot of different ways of sharing your faith, and I have never been one. I don't, for one, I don't love to speak in front of people, and my roles and responsibilities have forced me to become more comfortable with that. But I think the ways that I feel most comfortable sharing my faith is by just what I do and how I treat people, and when the opportunity arises to give the reason for the way I treat people to someone who is a skeptic or a non-believer, then I think I have a better opportunity to then verbally express it. So I think my most comfortable and hopefully, I don't know the effectiveness of it, but really, how I think about and treat other people. And I think about one experience that I had a few years ago. It was toward the end of my time in service in Washington, and there was a day of prayer, and I was walking with one of my sisters and brothers-in-law and a couple of other friends and my husband, and we were walking up the mall in Washington and then back down, and we were close to the front of the Department of Education, and there was a man coming the other way who recognized me and started yelling obscenities at me. And some who were with me were very incensed by that, and first of all, I got used to things like that, so it didn't bother me. But instead of allowing and or encouraging others to interact with that person on my behalf, I just said, no, I think we had better just pray for that individual rather than confront or address them in any way. And a couple of the people who were with me later said, that was really convicting for me, because I would have, gotten right back in this guy's face. And I just said, that's not my style. And, I always think about, I try to put myself in that other person's position and know that that person didn't know me. They were just yelling something that they thought they should yell at me. And I just, I look at every individual as created in the image of God and with great potential. And so I choose to instead pray for and pray about those people. I do the same thing with Randy Weingarten, one of my closest friends.
Yes. Betsy, you just shared, that was sort of one of the last questions I had, but you, in a way, brought it up. There's so many ways that people speak about how Christians should engage or not engage in the public, right? There's significant moves within Christianity that tell us, don't get engaged. If you get engaged, you become filthy in the engagement. Stay away, leave. Others engage and be active and vocal and perhaps in your face approach, right? And then some middle ground. So there's so many different ways of doing it. Share with us what I'll call the Betsy DeVos model for public engagement. There it is, right? What does it look like? Because it's difficult to do. And you just mentioned a situation now, how difficult it is. What would you recommend to us or advise to us?
Well, I'm not sure there's an exact model. And I would say that, if there is a model, a Betsy DeVos model, it's changed and it's iterated over time. I didn't get involved in the public and in public policy because that was a goal I had. I was sort of compelled into it. I got involved as a college student in politics, partisan politics, because I found it really interesting and fun. In 1976, to put a date on myself, I was what was called a scatter blitzer for then President Jerry Ford. And what that meant was I was one of a group of young college students who went around to different states in our region campaigning for President Ford to win a full term as president. And I found that really fun and engaging, and I felt like it was making a difference. And I never envisioned that that initial involvement in politics would eventually lead to, serving as the state party chairman for the Republican Party in Michigan. But I had a college professor then. His name was Paul Henry, and Paul Henry also happened to be our congressman for a period of time, and sadly died at a young age from a brain tumor. But Paul was very influential in my engagement in public policy and in politics by encouraging me to, to be the hands and feet of Jesus in that area of life. And so that encouragement, plus the encouragement of others, but my own interest, what I really felt God called me to be involved with, led me into those directions. And many times it didn't involve a lot of vocalizing. It was just showing up and doing the things that needed to be done. But over time, as opportunities arose and it seemed the direction God was nudging me, I never set out to be a Republican State Party chairman. I never set out to be Secretary of Education. What I did set out to do was try to help families with children who wanted something different for their children's education but couldn't afford it because of their economic circumstances. That's what I set out to do. And those other opportunities and those other areas to lead became available, and I took that next step. And I've always looked at my journey as one of taking that next step without having a 5, 10, or 15-year plan for my goals.
At Cornerstone, we speak a lot about vocation and calling and the importance of vocation, the importance of calling. In Christianity, many times I've heard people say, I sensed the Lord doing this, or I heard the Lord doing this. How have you, throughout your life, discerned your vocation, your calling, direction, the voice of the Lord versus the voice of Betsy DeVos? How have you worked through that in your own spiritual walk, professional life?
That's a great question, and one that I've asked many times, and sometimes and oftentimes it really involves. If I think I am getting prompted in a certain direction, it involves talking with my closest friends and advisors, starting with my husband Dick, and other times it's so perfectly clear to me that this is God's prompt that I report it to him or someone else and say, well, this is what I think I'm supposed to do. What do you think? But I would have to say it starts though with I think always being receptive and surrendered. Not like I said, I've never been one to lay out a whole list of goals that I want to accomplish. I really have tried to be available for that next thing. And I know that's not how many people are wired up. I understand that. My husband's not wired up that way. Other, family members are not wired up that way. But I think everybody has to really navigate that themselves. And if you are a person that has a real clear idea of what you want to do, I think you probably want to test that more with others when you think God is calling you to do something, but you're not sure that it's your agenda or His.
Let's speak about the role of others. The theme for this year, Cornerstone, is Christ, our greatest friend. And we've spoken a number of times about friendship, the importance of friendship, the crisis of loneliness in our country, the importance of friendship, the demands of friendship. And so share with us in your life the role of friendship and friends. Others in terms of calling, vocation, direction, confirmation, critique. How have you surrounded yourself with friends? And just share with us just your view of friendship and the influence of it in your life.
Well, friends have been a very, very important part of my life, and I would say important part of support and encouragement for me. At many different intercepts, they have, and I would just refer to, the time that I spent serving in Washington. There was a core group of friends, one of whom took the responsibility to every month send out a new update and list of prayer concerns I had and or upcoming decisions and or life, what was going on in the rest of life. And she would take care of making sure everybody was aware of those needs and requests. And this whole group, and it actually the core group was a group that Dick and I, my husband and I, had pulled together in 1999 to go to Israel together for a 2.5 week study tour with, and some of you in the room probably have heard of Ray Vanderlaan, one of his trips to Israel, and that whole group really bonded in a very significant way, and we still get together almost monthly even now. But that group in particular and others have been very, very, very important to me in at specific times and intercepts, and some of them before I even have had to reach out on many occasions would call just intuiting or being told that something was going on that they needed to check in with me. So yeah, the friendship relationships are absolutely vital in my life, and I'm sure all of you in this room have, if you haven't fully realized it, you will realize it more as you continue to transit through life. Early on as young parents, being able to sort of share experiences and sometimes commiserate with other young parents about what might be going on in your families. You can't overstate the importance of friendship.
You're an expert in education. And I want to ask you to help us with the moral compass of education. At Cornerstone, we're committed to what we say is a biblical Christian worldview. It's a key distinctive. It's what guides us. It's our moral compass. Some will argue that is actually not a good thing in higher education, that higher education shouldn't have any of that, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But share with us how moral formation, or perhaps the moral compass piece, is so important to education, in your perspective, Betsy, and where have we gone wrong in our country in that sense?
Well, no education can happen without some kind of value set being taught. And arguably, in the realm of K-12 education today, over the last number of decades, we have gone further and further away from the moral foundations and the sort of the tethering ideas and characteristics that should be transmitted to the next generation. And we've seen that not only in, everybody points to the lack of outcomes in terms of knowledge and learning in our K-12 system, but hand in glove with that is the continued divorce of a moral foundation from what is being transmitted in all too many schools. And it begins, at the top with the system that is charged with running it. It's one of the reasons why I have fought for 35 years to free families from a one-size-fits-all government-assigned system for those who can't afford to make another choice. And I think we're seeing in many different respects today the results of that system that has gone increasingly farther away from any kind of a moral tethering that we would want to see and have for not only our own children, but for our neighbors' children, and for for everyone coming up in the rising generation in our country. And for those who say that you do not teach values or morals in a K-12 setting, I would argue that, and that this notion of separating faith and or religion from education, you do not separate those two, because it's always someone's values that are being taught, no matter how you try to separate it. And I think it's one of the most important reasons why we have got to change the model from a top-down system that sort of exists to serve itself and its agenda, to one that is directed by the public, by families, to choose where their children can best learn, whether it's a specific pedagogy or if it's a specific values-based, faith-based education that they're seeking. That is really ultimately where we need to head, I believe, as a country, and obviously I've been trying to make that case for a long time.
Thank you, Betsy. I shared with you a little yesterday, I want to introduce this conversation to our students and faculty and staff. We talked a little bit about this with our faculty in the fall retreat, faculty and staff, but in August there was a fascinating conversation in the New York Times entitled, "What's Up with America's Misguided Obsession with Ivy League Schools?" Right? And 4 of the New York Times opinion writers and one of the editors on the board had this conversation. And I want to share with our audience part of the conversation, because it's very, very important given what you just shared with us. 4 individuals were part of this conversation on the editorial board. And Ross Dudat was the one who started and said this: "I sort of feel like the institution Harvard corrupted me," he writes, "a little bit. That I went there as an ambitious kid, obviously, but mostly it nurtured my ambitious side at the expense of my intellectual and moral side. And that's sort of what these schools do. It's not just that you go there because you're ambitious, it's also that they exist to teach you that you should want to be more ambitious than you already are. I don't think Harvard was good for my soul." The response from the editor: "I'm not sure going to college is supposed to be nurturing your soul." And you talk about 2 very different positions here. One, and Ross has been on this stage in the Wisdom Conversations a couple years ago, where he speaks, college should be about nurturing your soul, as well as many other things. But you can't ignore this most important part of us. And the response, maybe it's not supposed to be doing that. And this raises this profound question, I think, for K-12 education, for higher education, the nurturing of the soul, moral formation, spiritual formation, what we need to do. So share with us your thoughts on this conversation and your work and what we should be thinking about even here at Cornerstone.
Well, this exchange, or the essence of it, is really not a surprise. I mean, we've seen this increasingly in higher education, where the question around what is education for. It's good that we are airing that more now, and it's becoming more clear the divide between those who, like the second individual here, Michelle, who somehow thinks you can subdivide, or you can divide individuals into little pockets. Of course, college is supposed to be nurturing your soul. That is, I mean, your soul and all of that part of you. It's integrated into you as an individual. Like, you can't sever that. You can't separate that. And you can either help nurture and grow it, or you can help it die. And I think that, Ross has called out the question about what the direction that much of higher education has taken today and the experience that young people are having without the moral formation. Now we're seeing some of the results of that in many of the demonstrations that are really based on a faulty understanding or a lack of understanding of history and reason. And so I think this is I'm really thankful that Cornerstone really takes this seriously and is intentional about developing the whole person and not pretending that we're easily subdivided into pieces and parts and that we only address one of those parts by attending a higher ed institution.
We have something here called Golden Eagle Days. How many of you students came to a Golden Eagle Day? There it is. See, these are admission days when prospective students come and visit our campus with families, Golden Eagle Days. And over the last year and a half, I've shared with Golden Eagles participants and families some of the goals and outcomes we pursue at Cornerstone. And one of them is a vibrant, flourishing relationship with Jesus Christ, the soul part. But then I also say, we can't make you do that. You have to own that yourself. So there's an approach we have in Christianity, I think, which is nothing wrong with it. We focus on systems, churches, institutions, higher ed, government, so on. But you're also a champion of what I'll say personal responsibility and the importance of individual responsibility. So what advice would you give to us and to our students about not just the importance of soul formation in Christ, but the role we have as individuals to own that on our own? Whether there are institutions to support it or not, what do we do as human beings, as people, to foster that?
Well, I think, first of all, choosing to come to a university experience like Cornerstone is a very good place to help develop that and to have that reinforced. And I think, there has been certainly a move away in many parts of our society from acknowledging that personal responsibility is an important element of formation and education and your own personal growth. And I think that to our detriment as a culture, society, and a country, because without assuming responsibility for our own actions and decisions and choices, we end up with more and more individuals blaming others and claiming victimhood, when in fact many of the choices that could have been made before for oneself would have set them on a different trajectory. So, personal responsibility has got to be central to what an education experience is. And again, it really speaks to the importance of education, viewing education as much more than just imparting facts and figures and memorizing information. It really is developing the whole self, and inclusive in that is the ability to take responsibility for oneself.
Betsy, thank you for all you've done. I'm new in this community, 2.5 years. But thank you for all that you and your family have done for West Michigan and for Grand Rapids, for our state, for the nation. We're about to close, but I want to give you the last word. What would you share with our faculty, our staff, our students at Cornerstone from your vantage point? It's a very important time in history for our country, for the world, for our state. What are your parting words of wisdom for us that we can reflect on and think about?
Well, it is a difficult time in our nation's history, but I have great optimism that the rising generation is going to step into roles of leadership and responsibility that are going to help change that trajectory. One of my favorite verses from the Bible is Micah 6, verse 8, and I just leave you with it as one that is easy to remember, hard to do, and that is to seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. And I think that kind of encapsulates both the responsibility and the opportunity that you all have, that we all have. And I just want to encourage you as you continue your education, your whole person education. We need you, and I look forward to seeing the wonderful ways in which you are going to step into this next season of responsibility in our world, in our country, and in our world. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Cornerstone, would you please join me in thanking Secretary Betsy DeVos. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great to have you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you.